From lying about buying an entire island to denying rumors of the UFC getting sold mere hours before it actually happened, Dana White has told some pretty big lies to fans over the years, starting with the UFC Fight Island situation. Let's take a trip down memory lane, shall we? For this tale, you're going to have to go all the way back to 2020, when the COVID-19 pandemic really hit hard and fast. At the time, White was looking for ways to keep the UFC going by finding an alternative place to hold the fights. Dana teased that he may actually buy an island and stage the fights there. But of course, you can't trust anything that comes out of the mouth of this guy, because, as you guessed it, it turned out to be completely false. But that wasn't even the end of his lies. He later stated that the fights would take place in Abu Dhabi and mentioned that it cost him a lot to arrange the fights there.
Fight Island is on Yas Island in Abu Dhabi. And, just like I said about Florida, when we went to Florida, how the commission and the government worked with us there to pull off this fight. Same thing with Abu Dhabi. These guys have been amazing partners in everything that we've ever done with them. So we're going. And yes, there is an octagon on the beach.
He used tons of promotional stuff to hint at the bouts that were going to happen, including a supposed one that would take place in a cage on the beach. Surprise, surprise, not only did the fight not happen, but Ari Emanuel reportedly said that UFC didn't have to pay for Fight Island at all. Instead, all of it came from Abu Dhabi, who forked over a fortune so that fights could be held there. Of course, fans weren't happy that they were essentially lied to by Dana, but hey, that's really just par for the course for this guy, because he also lied about Jon Jones recently. The two were butting heads over Jones's pay. Jon stated that he'd like to get paid more, especially if he's going to move up to heavyweight. He thought that a super fight would be held if he did make it to the new weight bracket, and for that, it only makes sense for him to get paid appropriately. But here came Dana White to rain on his parade. White not only shot down Jones's chance at fighting at heavyweight, but also claimed that the number that Jones had demanded for a fight against Francis Ngannou was just too dang high. Can you guess what it was? Well, if you said $30 million, then you'd be right. Of course, Jones and his management completely denied this claim, so no one really knows just what the real number he asked for was. Fans of the UFC fighter weren't happy that White was basically going out and spreading lies about him. Though at this point, do you really expect anything different from him, especially after the whole Reebok fiasco? For this next little lie, let me paint a picture for you. It's 2015, and UFC has just brought in Reebok to be their outfitter for fighters. Now, this is problematic for one big reason. Fighters have their own sponsors, and they definitely wouldn't be sticking around if they were swimming in Reebok gear, so it was clear to just about everyone that their pays were going to be affected big time. But of course, Dana came in and assured everyone that everything would be a-okay, while most likely cashing the who knows how many million-dollar check that Reebok had written to him just a moment ago. White also claimed that in the long run, this would be great for fighters and actually pay them more. I mean, if you're watching this video, you already know just how much of a flat-faced lie this was. None of White's claims came true, and from the $70 million from the deal, which were going to go to the fighters, only about $40 million actually made its way to their pockets. The rest of it? Well, I can only imagine that they were sitting comfortably somewhere in Dana's many bank accounts. Oh, and it wouldn't really be a list of Dana's lies if I didn't mention this next one. I'm talking about the time he lied about Strikeforce continuing. By now, everyone's aware of just how the UFC operates, right? Anytime they see some form of competition, they decide to buy it out and then promptly proceed to close it.
UFC has purchased Strikeforce. Is that true?
That is true. Like I say to you guys all the time, every year we take this thing to another level, and some of the deals that we're working on now, international and all the other things, and obviously, acquiring Strikeforce now.
And that's pretty much exactly what they did back in 2011 when they bought out their biggest competition, Strikeforce. Of course, Dana continued to assure fans that Strikeforce wouldn't just be closed off like that, but unsurprisingly, within just 2 years, fans' worst nightmares became a reality. Quite a disappointment if you ask me, especially because I'm fairly certain this isn't even legal, which would explain why UFC has been taken to court for being a monopoly in the past. You'd think, being the head of a promotion, he would draw the line somewhere with his lies surprise, right? Apparently not. Remember that time he lied about Ben Askren? This is a lie that's pretty easy to disprove, which makes it all the more weird that Dana felt the need to say it in the first place. But apparently, back in 2013, White tried to smear Askren by saying that the fighter didn't want to be a part of the UFC. That was honestly a super weird thing to say, considering Ben was one of the hottest free agents at the time. But I suppose that either his fighting style or all the times that he talked smack about Dana just rubbed White the wrong way, and he decided to make up this pointless lie about him. In truth, they refused to even offer him a contract, which for some reason Dana thought was Askren's fault. How that's supposed to make sense is completely beyond me, but hey, you really can't reason with a liar now, can you? Though this next one may be Dana's most hilarious lie yet. I'm talking about the time he lied about Jeremy Stephens' arrest.
I get the call this morning that he's been arrested at his hotel room. I go straight to the police, the sheriff's department here, and start putting the pieces together on what's going on and how to fix it. So I was, I'm sure you could tell by my tweeting, I was 100% confident that I was going to get him out for this fight. So basically what happened is they do not like him in Des Moines, Iowa.
Okay, picture this for a second. Back in 2012, Stephens was arrested on the day of his UFC fight. This was for a charge related to an assault that happened about a year ago. I mean, it was public knowledge that he had been arrested, right? But for some reason, Dana thought it'd be a good idea to lie about the whole fiasco. He said that Stephens would continue to fight and denied any chance of the fight against Yves Edwards getting postponed. Plus, guess what? He continued to lie about this until the show was live, even though the news had already broken out and it was clear as day that Dana was outright lying on live TV. Hilariously enough, the UFC didn't even cancel the fight until they went on air. All the while, one of the opponents was sitting in a jail cell. This is honestly some next level crazy stuff. But there's one thing you may have noticed, and that's that a lot of his lies revolve around money, especially this next one, which is about the UFC being sold. Back in 2016, White told ESPN that the UFC wasn't for sale. This was despite the fact that news of a potential sale had been circulating literally for months, and it was quite clear that a sale was most likely going to happen after UFC 200. But of course, Dana being Dana continued to deny any and all rumors, going as far as to lie on the night of the landmark event itself.
About the UFC up for sale, or is there a possible partial sale of the UFC?
Yeah, we're not up for sale. We're always doing we're always working on deals and our expansion globally. And, I've been saying since this thing came out, no, we're not for sale. But let me tell you what, somebody shows up with $4 billion, we can talk.
And no surprise, within 48 hours of UFC 200, the deal went through and the news was officially announced. I mean, it could mean that he's so clueless that he had no idea the entire time, but considering his track record, I'd be willing to bet that this was just another moment where he was lying. Though, that's all of the biggest lies that Dana White has told his fans.
Look at the small shows, and then obviously we started doing this show. We started doing tons of other shows and looking at them. I have never seen anything like this. This is one of the nicest shows in the world.